Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope everyone's doing well. Had a great week. Man, been crazy in the tidal Potomac fishery as well as the upper Potomac, man. The upper Potomac hasn't been this low in years. I can't remember their upper Potomac being as low as it is for everyone chasing smallies up on the upper Potomac this weekend. But we're going to recap a little bit of what's going on the tidal Potomac. Because we've had just so many events stacked up this month already. We had the BFL Shenandoah twofer, 2-day 9-6-9-7. We followed it right up immediately with the Toyota series. And then right after the Toyota series wrapped up on Saturday, we had the MLF Garcia College event on Sunday. All this taking place out of Smallwood over in Marbury down in Maryland. And then this weekend, on Saturday and Sunday, we've got the Northeast BFL twofer. Okay? So it has been absolutely crazy how many events and how many boats have absolutely been pounding the Potomac estuary. And for multiple days. This has been going on since the holiday. Okay? Since back Labor Day. Okay? Heading into there, it is bad. It's been all, other than like, you know, some events maybe in June or so in the past, years past, I don't think I've seen as many just in quick succession, especially September. But things have really shaped out. I mean, I feel it's kind of weird, man. Like, it's just absolutely been crazy, the ebb and flow of catches. There was a 19-pound bag caught yesterday, okay? And it's like, there's no rhyme or reason. We had a lot of rain. We had a lot of rain yesterday. Overnights, the past two overnights, we've had a lot of rain, which is totally throw another thing in the mix for those guys going out there this weekend. But we had dealt with everything in my previous video. So we had moved off of Hurricane Aaron, okay, in late August. And that impacted the fishery for about 2.5 weeks. It really did. We had a lot of storm surge from, you know, more so down there the Bay and the Potomac, you know, in the southern part of the Potomac estuary. Not so much internally up river towards D.C. because the storm never made landfall, okay? It was all more of a storm surge impact on the fishery, which drove a lot of the bass into those creeks, okay? Looking for cover, okay? And what I mean by that is that's not something that typically happens like all the time. A lot of times we've got resident bass in a lot of different parts of the estuary. And so it's interesting to see sometimes what happens, but we just saw it in the last week and a half where bass were moving up tight to cover. Any kind of cover. Timber, you know, docks, walls, any of that kind of like thing that they could align to and relate to. That's where they were. Belmont Bay, in the structures, you know, the markings for the channel, right, that you go out, hold all the signs, that, you know, that tell you everything, right? Anything like that, they were relating to. And that was a product of coming out of that hurricane and everything getting kind of mixed up. The water temperatures dropped considerably because of that hurricane as well, because of all of that cold water from out in the ocean, obviously is pushing up, okay? And so it changed that. It changed the salinity. It changed everything and kind of just put all the bass in the foam. So that contributed to the weights that we're going to talk about that we've seen now over the last 3 weeks and the fluctuations in the weights and why maybe bags aren't nearly as big. I mean, I went into the event saying a 15-pound bag, a daily 15-pound bag is going to get you a check. That's basically where my mindset was. You know, that doesn't mean that there weren't bags bigger than that or a lot of bags smaller than that. I mean, most bags were in that 10 to 13. If you look at these events, that 10 to 13-pound range deep into the event field, okay? Which, that surprised me a little bit. Would have thought that would have been higher because it typically is in September. Now, September's not nearly as prolific. You catch as many bass, but a lot of times you catch the bigger bass in June. And you can look at that, some of that, the bigger fish being caught in the summertime. but you can catch as many bass. And so for these events, it's it's a five limit. Other than like a 3-limit co-angler or a 5-limit co-angler, but I mean typically it's 5. Unless we're talking about the Bass Pro Tour like on June 26th when they were in town, it's basically just catch, right? It's not a 5 bass limit. It's basically catch, wave, release, all your catches. And I think if I can remember, Ottifo won in June with about 32 fish. Okay, I think it's over 4 days. Okay, so it gives you a little bit of indication. And there was a big drop after that. I think it fell back down to the low 20s. You got to remember, he also won by I think it was 20 pounds. Maybe 25 pounds in June. So he was just slamming them up in the creek, way up into the creek. And that really didn't come into play in these events because that was... Back in June, it was 95 to 105 degrees, if y'all remember, when the Bass Pro Tour was here at the Potomac River. And so those conditions are not September conditions. The nights are cooler, the mornings are colder. We had wind. You had a lot more wind in September than you do in June, and then you also had the impacts of Hurricane Aaron. Okay, so a lot of that was thrown into the mix. So we kicked it off with the Bass Fishing League. Phoenix Bass Fishing League BFL event, Shenandoah, 2-day, September 6th and September 7th on the weekend. And that was won with 33.05 pounds. So keep that in mind. That was a 15, I want to give some people their due too. So let's make sure I got this up here. If I can pull this up. 15-12 on day 1. 17-9 on day 2, won the event. And let's get into it just for that. So Hawk, obviously known angler, took home $6,230, winning with 33.05. So 10 fish. Followed up by Broderick Lucky with 30 pounds, 3 ounces, taking home 32.15. Tom Bateman, 15 on day 1, 14.8 on 15.5, and 14.8 for 29.13. So your top 3 was 29 pounds and up, okay? And then we had, obviously, our top 10. I always like to look at the top 10. Lenny Baird was our 10th place angler with 11.13 on day 1, 14.10 on day 2 for 26. So it took 26 pounds, 7 ounces, walking with $727 in that BFL event to finish in the top 10. 26 pounds, 7 ounces over 2 days. Conditions for that, obviously closer to the hurricane. A little bit tougher bite. Okay, definitely a little bit. Okay, it was the bass were in that, I want to call it not the fall transition, more like a storm surge weather event transition, where they were all over the fishery. It was, they couldn't figure out what was going on because the water changed. You got to remember, these fish are all behavioral driven in a tidal fishery. They know the tides. They know when that water, as soon as that water starts to rise a little bit, they're on the move. This is a behavior. They're conditioned to a changes every day in their fishery, right? Unlike a lake or a reservoir. Unless a lake or reservoir has a dam, or that they're letting water out to go into a river or something like that, and having that change in flow, it's like we say, it's like you say during, on the battlefield, it's here every day. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. The suck is here every day. Okay, and that is what it is. In a tidal fishery, every hour on the hour, it's constantly changing. Okay. From high tide to low tide. Everything is always, so they're used to that, but they're not necessarily used to the dropping temperatures as quick, the cold, in terms of water temperatures, and then everything just getting kind of in a flux. So that was the first event there. Then we had the Toyota series, which I was really, really excited about, and not surprised at all. Based on the conditions, and I had this conversation heading into the event, I was not surprised at all that Brian Schmidt, I said he was going to be in the top 3. Like, I mean, Christian Greco also said that. He won last year. He does really well in the Potomac. He's a Mattawoman guy, although I was worried this year because the mat really hasn't been up to its standard, okay? And a lot of that has to do with MLF. And most people are not aware of this. Because MLF has not always fish released via a boat in a lot of its events, okay? That's a new kind of thing, okay? The higher events now are doing, fish release, okay, after the weigh-ins, obviously not BBT, but you know what I'm talking about. And they're dropping. They're not just whereas years ago, all the fish just got released right at Smallwood, and they would end up in the Mattawoman. And so that fish population artificially was growing. It wasn't growing through spawn. It was growing through 500 fish to 1,000 fish, even more over a 3-day tournament being dropped into that creek. Not so much the case anymore. So we could be on the beginnings of a rebalance in the fishery to where that now that they're not dropping all of these fish in the Mattawoman, okay, like in September where they just dropping them all in September and then those fish are spawning the next year in that creek, right? Again, impacting bass population density, okay? So I was like, in that, I was like, I don't know. Solid guy. And then right out the gate on day one, 11 pounds. And I knew something was up. I didn't see Christian this year out before. Typically I do before events. Didn't see him this year. I stayed on the Virginia side. So, I mean, I can assume he went to the money spot from last year for him at Mattawoman, but I'm not sure. But when he put in that 11 pounds, my head thought he went to the mat. Because I know catches have been down in the mat this year. And so when he came in with 11 pounds, and there were a lot of other guys coming in with 12, 13, and 14 pounds, including Brian Schmidt at 14 pounds, be interesting for people to freaking, throws a wrinkle in when people find out where Brian Schmidt was fishing, okay? Because it's not a traditional spot that you hear about a lot in tournament events, okay? And again, that's what the estuary is about. It's about getting on a bite a lot of times in some untraditional places that only local people, and Brian being from Maryland, only kind of local people kind of know about and know when the fish are going to be there. And they may not be there all the time. They're only in there in certain scenarios, right? So that was pretty interesting. The other thing I thought was pretty interesting in terms of the Toyota Series event is Ron Nelson fished the Toyota Series and he had fished the Bass Pro Tour back in June. So it was kind of interesting to see that when we think about like how does the fishery produce in June versus how does it produce in September, right? Okay, so you had the Bass Pro Tour guys, one with like 79 pounds over like 4 days, okay? Ron Nelson finished in second, okay, with 51 pounds, 13 ounces in June. That was June 26th and through the 29th. Ron returned in the Toyota Series, and I believe he finished in 19th place, okay? And his weights were considerably lower. I think they were about 3 pounds a day lower than what he had caught during the Bass Pro Tour. Now, those are the kind of people that have interest. Like, if you're like me and you're a geek for this shit, like, I want to have that conversation with Ron. Like, did he go to the same places in June and September? Was he fishing the same places? Or, because we know what the bite was like in June, and it was not a structured cover bite in June. But this month, it has been a structure and cover bite, okay? And that cover in the Potomac, a lot of people who fish the tidal Potomac have a different mindset because of the grass. Grass can be cover, okay? Like, most people just kind of equate cover with other stuff. And grass, when it's all matted up, it's like a ceiling, right? At the top of the water column. It is cover, Like, but there's some people I talk to that don't consider grass to be grass, and then structure and cover, and all that other stuff, in its own separate category. I think the Potomac's a little bit different because they'll relate to that grass like they'll relate to a dock, okay? Because they got that overhead cover, and in September it's fully grown in, unlike June, okay? And it's thick. And so September you had versus June, you had especially during the Toyota Series event, you had a lot more people drop shotting, a lot more people doing some things that they were not doing in June, okay? And a lot of that had to do with the fish being scattered and really having it harder to be able to dial in fish. They weren't where they normally were. Guys did a lot of junk fishing, okay? And so in that you had Brian Schmidt finished in first place, day 1, 14.11, day 2, 15 pounds, day 3, I think it was 15.04. So his day 2 and day 3 were very consistent, okay? He finished with 44 pounds, 15 ounces, 15 fish over 3 days, okay? Second place, Sam Fish, 11-13, day 1. The day one catches were low by Potomac River standards for September. Keep that in mind. Sam Smith, 11-13 on day 1, 14-5 day 2, 17-7. That's what sealed the deal for Sam Fish. 43-9. Okay. Christian Greco, obviously, I've talked about before, came in third place. He always does really well with the Potomac River. He had 11-10. Okay. Then he had 16-5 on day 2. And then I was like, okay. So maybe he made a change. We don't know. We'll wait for his video to come out. Maybe he made a change on day 2. I think he made a change. I don't think he went back to the same spot. And then 15-5, he finished with 43.04. $11,086. Sam Fish finished with $14,028. He also had a $1,000 Phoenix bonus for his boat. Brian Schmidt, $33,869 on his home body of water. Well played, sir. 10th place, Emil Wagner, 9'2" on day 1, 17 on day 2. Look at that deer. Day 2 was the day, okay? And then 13, dropped to 13.6 on day 3, finished with 39.12. So 39 and up was your top 10. Top 10th place played 3,362 in the Toyota Series, okay? And of that, on day 2 in the top 10, the movers, the people that made their moves, they made it on day 2. Emil Wagner had 17.4. Jason Berger had 17.1. Okay, these are the guys that jumped considerably from their day 1s, 9 pounds, 11 pounds, 9 pounds, jumping to 17 on day 2. So that was the move. Okay, and so that was a Toyota Series. Now, Sunday, to back that up, of just numbers being caught over 3 days for the Toyota Series, right after that, we had the MLF Abu Garcia College Fishing presented by Yeti, okay, on the Tidal Potomac. Can't make this up, man. Freaking crazy. I think they had 100 boats, didn't they? I think it was like, but yeah, so we had 100 plus boats in all these events, I believe. If I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry, it's like 50 boats in the College Series. But 100 in the BFL, over 100, I think it's 114 in the BFL event, and then over 100 in the Toyota Series event. So that gives you an idea. Plus co-anglers, so, throw that out there. 200 anglers fishing. So in the Abu Garcia on Sunday, after the Toyota Series wrapped up, after the freaking estuary got pounded for 3 consecutive days, okay, the college guys came on, okay? And the college guys, man, stayed right in line. Right in line pretty much with day 1 of the Toyota Series. So you didn't see 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. You didn't see that. College team series, okay? So 2 guys in a boat, fishing as a team. First place went to 14.11. So 14 pounds, 11 ounces was first place. 13 pounds, 7 ounces was second. And 12.15 was third. So the first two spots were won by Ryan Cahut and Brady Osborne, Braylon Eggerding, and Brady Pinwar from Adrian College in Michigan. It's east of Ann Arbor, east of the University of Michigan, if you're wondering where it is, in Adrian, Michigan. Then third place, Nevin Osborne, I guess by himself, with 12.15 himself, Oklahoma State University. Now, when you look at this college series, man, I mean, and it's something I've really been like digging into for sponsorship wise, for college teams, as kicking some juice in to sponsor some college teams. I believe we did have, if I'm not mistaken, I think James Madison was in from Virginia. James Madison finished in 25th place. Hayden James and Daniel Litwin. Okay? I know Daniel Whitman actually won one of my events on the Shenandoah River. So kudos to those guys from JMU. They finished with 8 pounds, 13 ounces, 25th place. But when you look at this colleges, man, there's two colleges that stand out to me. Okay? Adrian College and the University of Pikeville. Adrian College in Michigan, University of Pikeville is in Kentucky. Okay? 6 of the top 20 boats. Let me say that again. 6 of the top 20 places were filled by Adrian College anglers. It means they had 6 boats in the top 20. Pikeville, University of Pikeville, they had 5 boats in the top 20. So 11 of the top 20 spots at the tidal fishery at the Potomac River, Abu Garcia College Fishing, 11 of the top 20 spots were taken by 2 colleges. Freaking crazy. Check out those colleges. You want to send your kid to college and go fishing? Check out those colleges, because they got a lot of guys and a lot of boats, and they got a lot of sponsors. So if you're interested in fishing in college, you might want to check out those 2 colleges. And then we got a few coming up in our region. All right, really hardcore pressing. But you got to go do a lot of the campus stuff. We got 2 in Virginia, and we got working on the University of Maryland. So University of Maryland's coming. It's just a matter of you got to go through a lot of shit at the college and get everything done and approvals, because it's campus organization. It doesn't follow the NCAA. Now, it's not under the NCAA. So we can kind of do a lot of crazy stuff, okay? But it's still got to it's technically a campus activity. It's still got to go through it. So a lot of colleges have to do with that. So there are a lot more colleges coming online. And so very, very interesting. But I thought that was kind of unique aspect of it. All right, let's get into what we saw. What we really saw the last couple events was guys throwing a frog because the weather changed. Guys made up some ground throwing a frog, but a lot of guys basically were punching. Okay, they were jig fishing, they were junk fishing, and they were definitely punching. Especially going for some bigger fish. And it's just something you got to do on the tidal Potomac. You just have to do it. So whatever rigs, the dock bite was probably not as good as what I expected it to be for this event. But like I said, 19 pounds was just caught. Okay, and that would have been the biggest bag of, I believe, any of these events. So that tells me that going into this weekend, we've got that Northeast BFL event, the bags might be higher. So that, although we had this rain the last 2 nights, and the East has gotten hammered, eastern part of Virginia and Maryland has gotten hammered with a lot more rain than what we've gotten in the central Virginia and the 95 corridor, but we've gotten a significant amount. But they had like 7 inches of rainfall in like an hour and a half or 2 hours or something. So that's gonna work itself way through the fishery. But a couple of things, man, you had those guys working on that. A couple of things. A lot of guys were, that I talked to, obviously were throwing black and blue. Things like the crawl, Yamamoto, popular bait on the tidal Potomac. Putting bass in a live well. I mean, the crawl imitators, black and blue especially, are a big deal. Bottom up, also a big time action. Okay. The Beaver, grab one of these real quick. OSP definitely's got, got some, I made a recommendation to some guy like that they downshift from the 4-inch to the 3-inch for the Dulive because that's really helping me. This is cinnamon blue flake. It's probably one of my favorite to use on the Tidal Potomac. And like I've told people before, black and blue is a solid player in the Tidal, but it's not so much a player in the Upper Potomac. The Upper Potomac is more natural colors, more shiner, browns and Tennessee shad and that kind of stuff. It's not really a black and blue kind of deal if you're chasing smallies up on the Upper Potomac, but it is a huge deal in the tiger fishery. And then of course you can't go wrong with you've got the Dulive Craw, darker. Black was a big player. Black and black and blue were two of the bigger players. It's always that way, for sure. But one of the ones you might not be familiar with I'm telling you, if you can locate these, is catching fish on the Tidal Potomac and the James River. And that is the Adusta. Okay, let me pull one of these out. Again, this is cinnamon. See the pattern? This is cinnamon, okay? Cinnamon, blue flake, green pumpkin. You can get cinnamon, a lot more of that blue flake because you like that. You may like it. It's got that black and blue like flake in it, okay? Which is what cinnamon blue flake is to me. But look at the action on this. Look at how much action you're going to have in the water with this bait, okay? So it's got I love this bait because it kind of combines some of the things that we love about other baits. It's ribbed. So we like that. Like we like that in the bellows gill. We like that in a lot of these baits that are ribbed. And then also a lot of moving appendages in the water that are going to create action. Okay? Now, pretty light. It's got that. You can see that color. Just great action. It's a 3.8. Perfect size for the Potomac. 3.8. Okay? And you can rig this, you could obviously rig it the same way like this. You obviously can rig it any number of ways. Now, one of the ones also from Raid that I've done a video on, and I know guys hit it, is the Buggy Crawl, okay? The Buggy Crawl from Raid, all right? And the number one presentation is backsliding. Backsliding it out of the grass, okay? Backsliding it out of the grass. So you're reversing it, okay, out of the grass. So check out that video on backsliding. It's for tube fishing, for tubes. I do a lot with smallmouth. But this is a killer bait for the Tidal Potomac, okay? So if you can get this, if you can find this in your favorite color patterns, and because Raid's got a number, they've increased their colors. You want to check out the Buggy Crawl, okay? Don't sleep on it, man. A lot of people have their favorites when it comes to crawl, but I just prefer, Yamamoto's got, what it's got now, I just prefer that thicker in there, okay, as opposed to a lot of them are thinner, plus these things last pretty freaking good. But anyway, Buggy Crawl, check out the Raid Buggy Crawl. Obviously, I cannot do this video if we're going to talk about baits and not talk about the jackhammer, okay? Because it was a dominant player, has been a dominant player again this month when you talk to guys. It's been a lot of go-to. It's been a default bait for years now. Inside, outside grass lines, greenway flats, back in the creeks. If you're not in the heavy, or you're not throwing the frog, or you're not jig fishing, you're not backsliding tubes or tube-style baits right at the mat line or the grass line, predominantly people are throwing a jackhammer. And so two of the predominant patterns, I'm also going to show you something to throw into the mix that you might want to consider. Did I pull another one out? Yeah, I did. Thank you. So, obviously, you guys know jackhammer. The baby jacks have come out. All right. most of the guys I saw with rods had a white or a white chartreuse or a shatter color. I think they have Clearwater shad, is that what it's called? And then obviously your green pumpkin. Okay, and these are just the baby jacks. Baby jacks afford you the opportunity to double up on your money because they cost about the same as much as a jackhammer, but they're smaller, and it gives you the ability, if you're fishing for smallmouth like a lot of us do, it's universal. We can use this both at the tidal Potomac or the Upper Bay. We can also use it on the inland river systems like the Upper Potomac, the Allegheny, the Yaak, the Susquehanna, things like that. Okay, it's just a smaller profile that really matches more of the bait fish, typically in the inland river series, but it's an easy meal for largemouth. So trailer wise, I mean, pick your poison, right? And I got a bunch of these baby jacks. I think I have like 50, something like 45 or 50 baby jacks. So if you're looking for baby jackhammers, I think $11. I think I have them $11 on the store. $11. Hit me up. Just send me a message. And then your trailer wise, I've said this before. I've kind of moved off of some other trailers now. Corey does a phenomenal job at H&H. He also has his own Koosh Ball micro jigs with the blade. And I love these. Done a couple of videos on that. I love the shiner for Susquehanna. Those guys going up to the Susquehanna River on Saturday for the big Susquehanna fishing tackle event. You want to tie on one of these right here. Tie this on right here. The shiner Koosh Ball micro jig. But these work in the tidal Potomac as well, especially the green pumpkin, the black and blue, the California. Was it 520? Cali 520, I think, or is it 420? 520. Because it's got that black and bluey color to it. And then really like the fantail minnows. Fantail minnows from Corey as well. And his company, by the way, is HH Custom Baits, okay, out of Pennsylvania. All right, these things are freaking sick, okay? Great trailers. They're really light. In the end, if you're a smallmouth guy, you can use these by themselves as well, just on a jig head or free rigged or nose hooked. Sometimes when the water's really down, like this weekend, I think the gauge is like a foot and a half. You could just nose hook this, put a little nail weight in it, and nose hook it. Phenomenal baits, H&H Custom Baits. Check them out. I talked about this before. Slick Baits out of Texas. Dropped off a couple packs of these to some of the guys that fished this last weekend. This month on the tidal Potomac. It's a Bellows Gill imitator, right? Phenomenal color. Purple, blue. It's got that blue flake in there. Slick Bait Co. Slick Bait Co. out of Texas. Jonathan runs that down there. Does a phenomenal job. Always has a bunch of unique colors. Sometimes you can't find the colors on the website. You got to go on Facebook Live. So go on their Facebook page, Slick Baits Bait Co. on Facebook. Just search them on Facebook. They do a lot of Facebook Lives and live sales. So you can just get their unique color runs that don't make it on the website because they sell them out via their, another two baits I want to talk about from that crawl imitator fashion is the Evergreen. You got the jackhammer, right, from Evergreen, right? Most people are phenomenal, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people sleep on the Evergreen plastics, okay? Which is always like that. I've always had really great success with them. They're a little smaller. If you look at that shape, look at the shape, okay? You can do a bunch of fundamentally unique things with it too, but you can fish it any way you're fishing any of your other crawl imitators. But it's got a definite tighter and like a more action to them than a lot of them. A lot of them are big, like the Yamamoto. Let me pull that up. Look at that tail on there. They're big, they're long, big, and they got that weight at the end, right? And so it's a slower and faster like movement, like in terms of what you see with it, because it's got that rib. That rib catches the water for displacement, which creates the disturbance. That's what makes that bait really unique. It was great and unique. You see a lot of other baits. I think Guggen's got it too, where they got that rib, and that rib is there for water displacement. Okay. But the smaller these are, a lot of these Japanese JDM baits, they've got a lot of that plastic, and the plastic is heavier, but the action is just a lot. So if you're just you're moving it, you know what I'm saying? It's got a lot down there. To me, that mimics more of a real bait fit, a real crawl, like on the bottom, scurrying on the bottom, pulling up the dust cloud, right? From the substrate on the bottom of the river, right? I just really like it. It's a 3.3. Probably could go a lot bigger than a 3.3 for the title. I just like the 3.3 because, like I said, I can use it for inland river systems as well as the title. And that is right there. Evergreen. Kicker Bug Fat Baby. Say that fast a bunch of times. Kicker Bug Fat Baddie. And Spro, another one. You know, you shad guys. Pull out one. I know I'm giving up some juice. I gave out like six packs of these for one of the events. It is a black and blue. That's an awesome color for the title and the James River. So if you're not familiar with it, it's the Aminobite 3.75. Okay. Let me see if it's ultimate swimming action. It's got a lot of action to it for sure, but 3.75. I was going to say 3.8, so I'm glad I looked at that. 3.75 from Spro. It's called their simple black and blue. I don't know what I was thinking. And then I also like for them is this color right here. Okay, this is the Nasty Shad, which it mirrors. I don't know if I can get this one open or not. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to get this one. Oh, I got it. It mirrors a lot of your forage species in the tidal Potomac. Okay, your hickory shad, your American shad, all that stuff. Just a great. Again, ribbed. We love ribbed. Okay, I know a lot of people are big Kitech guys. Got no problem with it. Kitech's awesome. Kitech, Kitech, depending on where you're from. But there's just another option for you that you might not be familiar with. I like to introduce people for people, you know, to fish a different way, you know, than what everybody else is fishing. And you're probably not going to see a lot of guys familiar with some of the soft plastics, okay? You know, from Spro alone. And then, of course, shad-wise, you're not going to go wrong when you're going big donkey hunting for that big bite with the bottom-up ball-up swimmer, okay? You guys know the deal. I don't need to tell you. You know, when that bite is on and you can go to a little bit bigger, it's a 4.2, but when you go to a 4.2 to a 4.5, you know, swim bait, don't sleep on bottom up bulbs. From these guys, they create freaking incredible baits. And the other bait concentration I'll talk about is OSP. People message me all the time. Love OSP. It's one of my favorite brands, JDM brands for the tidal Potomac. Because they just got it dialed in the options. So you can roll with so many different baits. Okay, let me pull these out so I can show you guys a couple options that just mirror all this stuff. The shot, 4.5 shot. Okay, it is a little lighter, longer, thinner than your buggy crawl from Raid. Okay, but it basically is the same. Okay, see how it's longer? It's not as thick. Okay, but once this stuff gets all moving around, okay, you can backslide this out. You can, okay, phenomenal bait. 4.5 do live shot from OSP. Cool, OSP give you a bunch of rigging options too, you know, that you can do up on all their baits. So it's really cool. All right, now you want to go with a shad, 3.5 shad. Okay, a little narrower. You can kind of see in that. You can kind of see how it's really narrow at the back there, and it's got that pop boot tail, right? It just pops. It's like big. It's like almost oversized for the bait. Okay, so that's the shad, 3.5. Okay, and then the stick, probably the most underrated. Secret sauce. Okay, it is secret sauce. Okay, because a lot of people are going with the Senko. A lot of stick baits, Senko, shaky head, wacky rig, Neko. Okay, all that stuff. This is the bait. Okay. with the 19-pound bag. Okay? Right there. OSP D-Live stick 4.5. It's got a little bit on the end. Okay? Not your traditional like straight up stick bait. A little bit different, but you can fish it the same way. Okay? Look at all that blue flake up in there. Okay? See that blue flake in there? And we know they love the black and blue on the Potomac. Now, one of the lesser ones, and I'm still kind of like on the fence with this bait. Okay? I'm going to be honest with you. But it's growing on me a little. But again, I don't get an opportunity to fish it enough. Okay, that's going to change spring of 2026. Is the HP 3D Wacky 5-incher, okay, from OSP. Check this out. If you're unfamiliar with this, look at that. So just think about that. Okay, moving around. It's split. All right, laminate, two-tone, tone on the top, tone on the bottom. Check it out, okay? Very thin. I know a lot of guys don't like the thin worms, that I've talked to, but the action of this is pretty freaking sick. So it's growing on me. I don't know what Woo Daves would feel about this bait. Worming with Woo, I don't know, but I'm thinking he'd probably dig it. That's kind of where we're at. And then, of course, obviously, I cannot do the video talking about baits or Tidal Potomac without throwing in your beat rider. Okay? All right? Swim jigs were a dominant player, okay, the last few weeks with a lot of bags. Okay? Swim jigs were right on, not nearly probably as much as the jackhammer. Okay? But it's a little different, subtler presentation than your jackhammer, not. Okay? Look, there's no noise. There's no rattle on this bait. All right? I don't know if I can pull this one out or not. Yeah, I probably can. Oh, yeah, I can. Pull this out. I'll give you guys a good peek at this bait. Look at that. Totally different than what you're used to. Okay? And if it's totally different than what you're used to seeing, it's totally different than what those fish are used to seeing. That they've been conditioned to. Okay? So just think about that. Crazy sick bait from Valley Hill. Weedless swimming jig. Weedless, guys. Think about this. You're talking about the Tidal Potomac in September where everything is fully in. Okay? You need a weedless swimming jig. Okay? Definitely need to put that on your list. I think that's what I got. The only one I wanted to show for you guys going up north. What I mean by going up north is fishing up towards DC, where you can throw the crankbait a lot more effectively than you can in the middle of the estuary, okay, in the creeks and all that stuff. There's just a bunch of other baits you're more at. Unless you're at the mouths and you want to run that crankbait around the pilings, the railroad tracks and things like that with your crankbaits. And again, don't sleep on the black and blue, okay? Don't sleep on it. They love that freaking color variation on the Tidal Potomac. Okay, so you can run a square bill, you can run your crankbaits, in that section, Piscataway, up towards Broad, up towards Mount Vernon, up towards DC. As you're moving towards beyond Fort Belvoir, you're moving towards DC, Spoils, Smoots, Spoils, beyond the harbor. You're going up until DC. So that's just some options for you. Throw that out there. You can always hit me up if you want any specific breakdown baits or stuff like that or what's going on. Really cool thing. Last thing I'll say. It was really cool because I'd never seen this. Really cool to see smallmouth be brought to the scales during some of these events on the Tidal Potomac. It's not a smallmouth fishery, which means those guys went up to DC or the smallmouth are making their way down closer to National Harbor where the bridge is. Okay, that's telling us something about a change in the fishery. Okay, if the smallmouth work their way further below the National Harbor, okay, and they make their way down into the creek, into the mouth, and the creek mouths below that, which is a couple miles, okay, if they increase their territorial range, and they probably will stop at a certain point because of the the makeup of the water composition. Okay, obviously they prefer a clearer thing, but it's going to be very, very interesting to see. To see 3 pound smallmouth, 2.5 to 3 pound smallmouth being brought to the stage for a weigh-in was really, really cool. Because it's just not something you see every day. All right, guys, that was just a Tidal Potomac River event update. We got another one coming in this weekend. Northeast, Saturday and Sunday, BFL. I'm kind of expecting a little bit of a bump. I'm expecting a little bit bump in the weights because I think the fish now have settled back into normal pattern behavior heading into fall, okay? And they may be triggered to start feeding up, okay? Now they've gotten all the craziness of the yo-yo because of Hurricane Aaron and everything else and the storms and everything else that's kind of hit the fishery. I'm thinking we may see the biggest bags that we have seen all month come from the BFL. Those Northeast guys can slam them on the Potomac River, okay? Don't be surprised if we don't see more 17 to 19 pound bags come in this weekend on the Potomac. All right, guys, please like and subscribe. Enjoy this content. I'll leave my email and contact information as well as the newsletter, Substack newsletter, in the description. You can always message me, hit me up if you got any questions or just interested or want to go out fishing or want to meet at the ramp or just want to talk fishing. You got an event coming up on any of these regional fisheries or whatever. You got any questions? If you're a young guy on a college campus and you're looking to start a college fishing team, hit me up. We'll get out in front of it, see if we can't do something and talk to the administration, all that kind of stuff. All right, guys.